Māori governance is unique, and it's unique because we are focused on a number of sometimes competing imperatives. Some of those are tangible and measurable, and the others are not. And the intangible outputs and outcomes are just as important to the overall success of an organisation in terms of shareholder return and response, as well as the business, and we need to mark, measure and consider those. Māori organisations and entities are subject to the same corporate and commercial compliance requirements and regulations as all entities in New Zealand. We are also required to report back to our family. So the shareholders typically for a Māori organisation and entity are your aunts and uncles, they're your nieces and nephews. They're people who are seen and unseen. And so when we are thinking about how to report back or how we're operating an organisation, then we need to consider the cultural component as well as the mokopuna dividend. And the mokopuna dividend is that generation that's yet to come. So they might be the ones who are attending the AGMs or perhaps observing from a very small child's mind the meetings and the conversations and the discussions. The mokopuna dividend is how do we ensure that we are operating in a way that ensures the assets provide a longitudinal, long time, future forward returns for that generation. And so many of the Māori organisations that I'm involved with or have chaired and led talk about 100+ year time frame. And I think as well, people talk about quadruple bottom lines because it sounds good. But for us, we have a social, a corporate and a cultural responsibility that we need to deliver on. And the environmental deliverable or reporting function for Māori, in my experience, is very much a comfortable mix and comfortable tension between corporate and social responsibility. Because we're kaitiaki of our land, because we hold mana whenua as tangata whenua, then we have an obligation to ensure that our land, our natural resources, our waterways, our environment, our animals and people are treated well. I think a good deal of Māori governance happens off-table and offline. So that's ensuring that we talk to and listen more to what our shareholders want, because they will let you know in a very vocal, a very forceful way, not only at annual general meetings once a year, but at any meeting and at any opportunity they can. And we need to be mindful of their aspirations because this is a legacy asset. This isn't something that we typically buy and sell, although there are commercial assets and entities that are purchased and established and disestablished as the business plan or approach or strategy occurs. When I'm at a table, regardless of whether I'm sitting with my mum or my aunties, uncles or cousins, we are all equal, and that's certainly how I chair the board and chair the entity. That isn't or can't be always said the same for others. Some people do defer to their elders because culturally that's respectful. For me, that doesn't bode well for governance or good Māori governance. And again, when we're looking at leading through, nurturing, growing a legacy asset, I want to make sure that we're making the best possible decisions. And on occasions that means that we need to disagree with senior members of family. You can appreciate that that's sometimes tense, that's sometimes difficult, and there's sometimes a good deal of emotion and passion involved with that. For Māori, our tikanga, our protocol is that you typically pray, start the meeting with a karakia or a prayer, and then you end that meeting with the karakia and a prayer. And the idea of that is that you contain the conversations, the feelings, the energy, the passion of that discussion within that time, at that table, for that purpose and reason. The election of officers for a trust or an incorporation, an iwi organisation, is largely based on whakapapa. So what is my tie to this entity? What is my tie to this place or this asset? And so people will sometimes put up the best set of skills, whakapapa experience, qualifications, and a value-add approach. Sometimes they don't, just like any other board. What we need to be sure of, though, is that we're appointing the best people now. And I've never been of the mind that appointments based on whakapapa are always the best appointments for the execution of good strategy or for the governance of our assets and interests as people or as a shareholding group. And there are a growing group of us who hold that school of thought.